Hey bees, I'm Marie from Humblebee and Me, and today I wanted to talk about packaging and specifically vintage packaging. So I use a lot of vintage bottles and jars and tins and things in my photography for my projects, and I get a lot of questions about them. So I thought we'd sort of chat about that today. Vintage jars and bottles are definitely very trendy right now. I know pretty much everywhere I've been in the world in the last couple years, every time I go to a flea market or an antique store, I'll find tons of these little bottles and jars and things available for purchase, often for wildly varying prices. And there's all kinds of different things. There's old jars and bottles and neat tins and old things that had ointment in them and old makeup compact. There's tons and tons of stuff, and some of it's really, really beautiful, and some of it's really beautiful and useful, and some of it's really beautiful and strictly decorative, and most of it unfortunately is kind of more on the strictly decorative side. But I thought we would chat about some of the places that you can kind of get away with using vintage packaging. So the first thing you're going to want to do is check the condition of the item. So rust is going to be one of the biggest things to look for, because most of the metals that are used in older packaging, even though they were coated at one point in time, the coating has worn off and now rust is starting to eat through them. And so obviously, rust plus your products isn't awesome. So if the thing has rust and you really, really like the look of it, except that it's probably just going to be decorative, I definitely have quite a few of these containers where I will sort of put something in them to take nice pictures of them and sort of hide the rust, but sort of fully acknowledge that that product is coming right back out of the jar, because the jar of course doesn't rust because it is usually glass, without the lid ever coming in contact with it, so that I can use it safely, because you don't want rust in your products, of course. Another thing to look for is little crevices where things can hide. So you can see this little jar that I have here, this little milk glass jar, and some of the most sort of culprity crevices are inside these crimped style lids. You can get quite a lot of stuff stuck up in here, and I mean, heaven knows what that is, right? Because I bought this at like a store called Plant in Inglewood. And so yeah, the crevices in crimped tops and the crevices and ridges that you get from screw-on lids can be a place that stuff gets trapped. So keep in mind that if it looks like it's in delicate condition and you're really going to have to scrub away in there to get it to be usable, it's probably just going to be a decorative thing, which is, a bummer, but tis the tis the risk that you take when you want to work with something that is twice as old as you are. So some of the packaging I've had the most luck repurposing has been old makeup compacts, and in large part this is because these things were actually designed to be refillable, but they are typically fairly simple. There's just kind of a little sunken divot in the middle of this that you can then put makeup in. So they're quite easy to clean because they are metal, so you can clean them with soap and water and then wipe them out with some high-proof isopropyl alcohol. And then these are quite easy to reuse safely, which is nice. And I got another one here, same deal, absolutely beautiful. These are quite trendy, and they can vary wildly in price. I got these in Camden, and I think they came out to be roughly about 20 Canadian dollars a piece. And I'm sorry, I have really no idea where in the Camden market. It was down some stairs, and there was a lot of stuff around, because the Camden market is not a place of terribly many landmarks in my brain. It's a very easy place for me to get lost. Ooh, shiny, where am I, etc. But I've definitely found sort of makeup compacts for sale in antique stores in places like Amsterdam or Florence for like 90 to 150 euros. So definitely sort of have a price point in mind that you are willing to pay, because you can pay 10 times that probably. But yeah, these things are great. So if you like making sort of pressed powders, these are a lovely thing to put them in. When it comes to tins and jars, I highly recommend only putting anhydrous projects in them if you do manage to find some that are in good enough condition to continue to use to store things in, because really putting anything with water in them just further tempts rust, because of course there is metal in both of these things, and it's pretty hard to find something that is entirely free of metal. Usually the lid is metal, even if the jar is glass or is milk glass. And I have tried this, and sadly, yeah, I've had to throw out some lotions that have had really gross rusty tops from lids that sort of seemed like they were otherwise fine-ish. So in here I have a dry powdered face wash, and in here we just have an oil salve. This is Bill's lavender salve. The recipe's on the blog. So yeah, I would definitely recommend anhydrous projects only if you are finding yourself some vintage packaging that is in good enough shape to continue use. Sort of no sense in challenging it beyond what it can handle. I have a lot of little bottles like these ones, cute little ones with little micro scratches and sort of like a glass patina that's really lovely. And unfortunately, these are really sort of strictly decorative. They have so many little pock marks in them that I would be worried about sort of ever getting them clean. And as you can see, neither of them really has anything that resembles a reliable lid. So unfortunately, things like this end up being just really great photo props, but not something that you actually would want to store a product in for use, which is kind of a bummer. But on the other hand, the reduced wear and tear means that you sort of have them around for longer. And I believe I got these in New York City at a little flea market that I found close to the Natural History Museum. And it was this company of people, and what they did is like all they do is they just look for antique and vintage glass at the bottom of wells and in old dumps and things. And so it was really quite delightful chatting with them and seeing different things. And they could kind of tell you from the way that the glass was made, sort of approximately how old it was, which is really, really cool. So a great little piece of history, even if it really is just a prop. Something else to consider is the strength of the thing the strength of the container. So this one is quite nice, but I would never sort of put it in my purse and bang it around because I don't know if you can really see, but it's really quite thin, fine metal, and it's fine for sitting on a countertop and hanging out in a bathroom, but I certainly wouldn't put it in a bag and bang it around. So definitely something to keep in mind if you are investing in pretty containers. Don't break them. This one is from a shop in Vancouver called Step Back that I always make a point of visiting Step Back whenever I'm in Vancouver, because they often have a really nice selection of like little old packages and things. Something else to consider is, like, does it smell awful? I've definitely found some really, really cute containers that I really like the looks of, but they had been, their origins had been like holding motor grease or something, and they just, like, they smell absolutely awful. There's absolutely no chance I was going to be putting anything that I was putting on my body in a container that had held rancid old motor grease for 40, 50 years. Or even just, a really, really old, rancid, nasty salve or something. Like, definitely be sure to like open these things up and give them a whiff, especially if the container is plastic. I don't really recommend using plastic containers, vintage plastic containers, because they are quite porous and they really do tend to pick up smells, and it's quite difficult to clean them because you sort of have no idea if you're going to destroy them by exposing them to hot water or to like a high proof alcohol. So that would sort of be just another thing. It's like give it a little, and if it's then probably put it aside or just sort of accept it as decorative use. But personally, I don't like my decorative things to smell absolutely atrocious, but that might just be me. All right, those are some of my thoughts and tips on vintage packaging, sort of what to look for and if and when you can use it, and sort of, how to not give yourself an infection from using a really, really old container. Sadly, the general gist of it is that most old containers are not well suited to actually storing your products in. And so while I do sometimes use them as photo props, and you'll see them on my blog because they are pretty and they make for pretty pictures, I'm not storing them that way. I'm not using them that way, and I don't recommend that you do either, but sort of take a little bit of artistic license with the photography because it is fun. But I would love to hear about some of your favorite places to buy old containers and some of your like neat experiences with it, because I find you often have really lovely conversations with people and get stories behind these little jars and bottles, and it is quite nice. I know you can get them on Etsy as well, so if you have some favorite shops that are well priced, I would love to hear about them. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Check the description box below for some links to some interesting packaging that I have found online, and I will see you next time.